Chapter 5. Home Sweet Home. The infirmary was close enough to the armory to justify a quick revisit, but lingering any longer than necessary wasn't worth it. Mac was still there, lying in his bed, at the mercy of his coma. Cole could visit later. For now, just familiarizing himself with the basic layout would do. The kitchen proved more lively. The area rivaled any modern commercial operation in scope. Despite the numerous occupied stovetops aglow with flames and red light, the room didn't feel stuffy, like a Korean barbecue joint with proper ventilation. Another steampunk pastiche, courtesy of Seldorn's finest artisans. None of the dishes looked familiar, though. Various meats Cole couldn't identify, sizzled in massive pots, surrounded by vegetables that definitely weren't in any Earth cookbook. The smells were good, at least. Hell, after dealing with the J&I dirty bomb, the ensuing clusterfuck, and then getting Isekai'd, his stomach couldn't care less about alien gastronomy. Fotham, despite his intentions on behalf of the kingdom, seemed at least considerate of the shit they'd been through. Probably having heard their growling stomachs, Fotham led them to a cook, built like he'd spent his life hauling heavy sacks of food and cookware. "Master Marwyn," Fotham greeted him, "our special guests have been at practice. 3 mana potions, if you please." "Training, are they?" The cook gave their gear a long look, but his thoughts remained unspoken. "Never seen soldiers fitted thus. Begging your pardon, of course." Turning to a shelf, he grabbed 3 blue vials. "Fair warning, nary a soul drinks this without grimacing. Bitter as an Aurelian at market, though we've ways of making it less offensive." Marwyn turned to what looked like an icebox built into the wall. "Sunfruit press helps it down. Or," he pulled open the door, cold air spilling out, "apples from the southern provinces, fresh as morning. Rare sight indeed. Though, well, there's other mixtures that serve just as well." As enticing as it was to get hammered after dealing with the strangest day of his life, Cole had to turn down the offer. "Yeah, maybe another time. I think we'll just go with the apple juice, right?" His team nodded, eagerly so. Looked like no one wanted to play guinea pig with sunfruit. Not today, at least. The apple juice would do just fine. They'd already signed up for 1 mystery drink with that blue stuff, and that was plenty for now. They downed the drinks together. Not bad. The apple juice masked most of that promised bitterness, though a metallic aftertaste lingered. The warmth spreading through Cole's chest felt like that first sip of coffee in the morning, minus the usual jitters. Some of that training fatigue started to fade too. "Hungry lot, I'd wager," the cook said, still tending his pots. "Got a good consommé on. Marsh buck stewed with Korath root, been at it since dawn. Also got drell flanks rubbed with vis and aged in wine. Sarn and cave pheasant from the eastern ranges. River fish and melted butter with fresh schrolt. I wiped my hands on my apron. His Majesty's special guests ought to eat proper after all." The aromas wafting through the kitchen conjured up those fancy cooking shows where even the intrepid host sometimes found themselves linguistically fucked. Korath root, vis. At least marshbuck and cave pheasant gave him some idea what he'd be eating. The wine-rich smell from that drell dish was pretty darn promising, though. After months of MREs, he sure as hell wasn't going to turn down some royal Michelin star bangers. "I reckon we might as well try a bit of everything," Miles said, probably thinking the same thing. "Ain't had something proper in a minute." No argument there. At this point, Cole would have demolished a 7-Eleven hot dog, let alone whatever culinary extravagance they were about to get. Fotham nodded to Marwyn. "I shall have the maids fetch the meals when our guests have settled upon their quarters. Now," he turned to Cole and the others, "let us proceed to the guest wing." From the kitchens, a series of corridors branched deeper into the castle complex. Cole kept track of their turns, left at the first major intersection, past what looked like administrative offices, and up a broad staircase lined with bright lamps. Their path led through an open-air colonnade where afternoon light threw bold shadows across a checkered marble floor. The castle grounds stretched out below, visible between the classical columns. Reminded him of those old European castles he'd visited years back. Same grandeur, same attention to detail, almost literally. Funny how that worked. Of all the possible forms an isekai world could take, it just had to be medieval European fantasy. Maybe architectural styles followed some universal law of convergent evolution. The guest wing occupied the castle's eastern corner. It was perfect for visiting nobles or foreign dignitaries. Morning sun, decent elevation, multiple evacuation routes if Cole read those hallway junctions right. The deeper they went, the more refined the decor became. Polished wood replaced stone walls, while elaborate carpets replaced marble. Runic patterns lit up as they passed, almost acting like motion sensors, some kind of monitoring system probably. The guards they'd passed were positioned at key junctions, maintaining clear lines of sight down each corridor. Between this and the fortress-level security from when they'd first arrived, it seemed like Seldorn definitely didn't take any chances. "Those runes," Ethan said. "Motion sensors?" "Indeed." Fotham paused in front of one of the runes. "Experience has taught us, rather painfully, that certain demons may bend light to conceal their presence. These runes perceive their movement and render such sorcery quite useless." He led them down the final corridor, stopping at the first of several identical wooden doors. "Your chambers," he said, gesturing inside. High ceilings, polished wood, brass fixtures. For all their practicality elsewhere, Seldorn didn't skimp on hospitality either, although maybe that was practical in its own way when it came to housing important guests. The room itself was spacious enough, centered around a canopied bed that put their Jadiran accommodations to shame. A desk caught the afternoon light from tall windows, and a side door opened to what had to be a restroom, given the pipes running along the walls. "Damn," Miles whistled. "Sure could get used to this." "We have 4 such chambers like this, reserved for diplomatic guests." He brought them to the other rooms, each one following the same layout. Miles tugged at his collar as they entered the third room. "A bit warm in this one, ain't it?" "Ah." He moved to what first appeared to be metallic wall art, an ornate piece that flowing lines that, on closer inspection, formed a temperature gradient. He passed his hand over the left side, and a pleasant coolness began filtering through the room. The runes flickered as he adjusted the temperature. The closest analog would probably be one of those old analog thermostats, just with magic instead of mercury. Different principles, same basic idea. The room seemed comfortable enough, but something felt off. Were they really going to take separate rooms, leaving their backs bared to a bunch of strangers they hardly knew? Fuck no. If such private chambers prove unsuitable, perhaps I might show you our more commodious arrangements. I raised an eyebrow. Awfully on point even for someone as keen as Fotham. Either Fotham was a telepath, or this world's list of impossibilities included telepathy, telekinesis, and the other various flavors of psychic power. Well, if Fotham was a telepath, he sure as hell didn't react to the image of the booty warrior and his plans for Chris Handsome that Cole had intended to subject them both to. The confirmation of mental privacy, unfortunately, wasn't quite worth being the only one stuck with that mental image. Yeah, let's check those out. They walked down another corridor to a wider set of double doors. The commodious arrangements turned out to be a family suite. A central parlor opened into multiple bedrooms, not unlike those setups in period dramas, where aristocrats traveled with entire households in tow. Sunlight poured through tall windows that ran along a wall, bathing the living room. Lamps cast steady light from the corners, something closer to captured daylight instead of the flicker of flames or incandescence of bulbs. Fotham passed his hand near a runic panel on the wall, and the glow dimmed. The room stretched up to a high, coffered ceiling. Felt weird being in a space this grand after months of cramped quarters, though even grand was an understatement. It was more like stepping into some alternate timeline where the Industrial Revolution found purchase with magic instead of steam. Miles seemed to have the right idea, sinking into one of the velvet armchairs with an appreciative sigh. Cold looked out the windows. They were 3, maybe 4 stories up, with a clear view over the castle walls to the city beyond. I'd expected something grimier given all the Victorian aesthetic, but apparently I'd forgotten all about the other possibility, gilded elegance, all the better for his lungs. Cole's lifespan probably went a decade just knowing that this city wasn't some pseudo-London hellscape choking on industrial fumes. Dome structures, early skyscrapers, and towers caught the sun, rising between buildings that wouldn't have looked out of place in London or Prague. But where those ancient capitals drowned in their own antiquated civil planning, this place seemed to have considered traffic larger than carriages from the get-go. Wide boulevards stretched between buildings like they'd been transplanted from Los Angeles, as if someone had built a European capital from scratch instead of piling it on top of 1,000 years of urban sprawl. The harbor in the distance was almost as impressive. Ironclads and wooden sailing ships bearing all manner of flags and designs dotted the water, numbering in the dozens. "Alexandria," Fotham said, his reflection appearing in the window. While our capital cannot boast the vast expanses of Aurelia's cities or coffers, we pride ourselves on rather more practical achievements. Those cranes you see at the docks, a Seldornian innovation, as are the steam vessels that grace our harbors. Indeed, he continued, almost drunk on pride, almost all the merchant houses and companies of the continent maintain offices here. I nodded, turning away from the window. Proper infrastructure, exclusive access to magic tech, and heavy trade. It was the obvious recipe for small but loaded, yet Seldorn's apparent lack of colonial reach was curious, ethics aside. Did the demons truly have enough of their attention to curb the kingdom's ambitions, or was it something else? The bedrooms are this way, Fotham offered. They entered the master bedroom first, easily twice the size of the singles they'd looked at earlier. Canopied bed, tall windows, private restroom, and various other furnishings. A heavy wooden desk set beneath a mirror with dials built in